The struggle of man against power is the struggle of memory against forgetting. The first step in liquidating a people is to erase its memory, destroy its books, its culture, its history. Then have somebody write new books, manufacture a new culture, invent a new history. Before long, the nation will begin to forget what it is and what it was. The world around it will forget even faster. This is the story of a city and its people who have seen too many flags fly over its head. It is known as Trieste. To this day, most of its people don't even know what nationality they belong to. In 1382, the town council of the city-state of Trieste, proud of its time-honored independence, voluntarily approved its subordination to the Duke of Austria with the guarantee of broad autonomy. In 1719, the proclamation of the city as a free port stimulated a multitude of activities which promoted the development of the port and the city. With the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, Trieste found itself in a favorable position for the new commercial routes. The shipbuilding industry competed as one of the leaders in Europe. As well as in the commercial, financial, and insurance fields. By the end of the 19th century, the population had reached 240,000. In 1881, Italy entered into an agreement with Austria and Germany known as the Triple Alliance. Between the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th, Italy's colonial ambitions in Africa suffered a series of severe military defeats. International humiliations, such as the Battle of Adwa in Ethiopia in 1896, created the need for redress. And so Trieste began to be considered a possible region of colonial expansion along with other territories along the Adriatic. In 1914, with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand of Austria in Sarajevo, the First World War broke out. A year later, Italy declared war against the multi-ethnic Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Della vittoria. Comando Supremo, 4 novembre 1918, ore 12. La guerra contro l'Austria-Ungheria, che sotto l'alta guida di Sua Maestà il Re Duce Supremo, l'esercito italiano, inferiore per numero e per mezzi, iniziò il 24 maggio 1915 e con fede incrollabile e tenace valore condusse ininterrotta ed asprissima per 41 mesi e vinta.
In November of 1918, with the occupation of the city by Italy, Trieste, a cosmopolitan, multi-ethnic city, underwent what we today call ethnic cleansing. German, Slovenian, and Croatian schools were closed down. Thousands of railway workers and others in the public sector were discharged, exiled, and replaced with immigrants from Italy. In just 3 months, 40,000 inhabitants of Trieste and the coast emigrated to Yugoslavia. The Italian government initiated the forced Italianization of the region with an additional 47,000 soldiers, police, and prison guards, 9,000 in Trieste alone. Between 1919 and 1922, fascist paramilitary squads carried out a series of terrorist acts, torching and destroying more than 1,000 German, Slovenian, and Croatian language political and cultural clubs, as well as newspapers. The indiscriminate destruction of the roots and culture of a people reached an extreme level of brutality, forcing them to speak only Italian and forbidding the use of their own mother tongue, whether German, Slovenian, or Croatian. Italianization fever spared neither geography nor history. Italian names were imposed everywhere, often with grotesque and painful results. Many of the names of streets and squares, as well as schools, bear the names of traitors to the country that once was, some of them even assassins and racists who carried out acts of brutality and barbarity. In 1927, 500,000 surnames, 100,000 in Trieste alone, were Italianized. In September 1938, the Italian Prime Minister Benito Mussolini came to Trieste, once a city of peaceful coexistence between ethnic groups, to issue the anti-Semitic racial laws in the city with the second largest Jewish community in Italy after Rome.
Il governo italiano, riconosciuta la impossibilità di continuare la impari lotta contro la soverchiante potenza avversaria, nell'intento di risparmiare ulteriori e più gravi sciagure alla nazione, ha chiesto un armistizio al generale Eisenhower.
In the middle of the Second World War, on the 8th of September 1943, Prime Minister Marshal Badoglio announced the unconditional surrender of Italy to the Allies.
Contro le forze anglo-americane deve cessare da parte delle forze italiane in ogni luogo. Esse però reagiranno ad eventuali attacchi.
After its betrayal by Italy, Germany immediately occupied Trieste on a massive scale, formally absorbing it into the Third Reich. Only in May of 1945 would Trieste be liberated from Nazi control. On the 10th of February 1947, after years of war, occupation, and fascist oppression, peace and hope for future prosperity and hope returned to the city, and an unprecedented event took place.
En qualité de président, j'exprime à la délégation italienne les souhaits de bienvenue que forment pour elle les délégués des Nations Unies réunis ici pour cette mémorable occasion.
The United Nations proclaimed a new state, neutral and demilitarized under international protection, the Free Territory of Trieste. A provisional Allied military government was formed to be administered by the British and Americans in Zone A and the Yugoslavs in Zone B. Just 2 days before the establishment of the Free Territory of Trieste was to go into effect, during an attack on a Slovenian social club, a group of Italian nationalists gunned down an innocent 11-year-old girl with machine guns. An act of intimidation and protest against the British-American military administration of the city, now that Italy had lost sovereignty over Trieste, having lost the war. 2 days later, when the Free Territory of Trieste went into effect, more clashes occurred which were attributed to Italian nationalists and the Italian Secret Service, and which resulted in several wounded and 1 death. November 1953, demonstrations were infiltrated by Italian paramilitary groups with the objective of causing injuries. The result was a bloodbath. Other well-planned and devious methods were employed, particularly at the psychological level and in the media. Italy turned to a well-worn technique which had proved effective throughout the ages: divide and conquer. To divide, provoking rivalry and fomenting discord between the Italian community of Trieste and the Slovenian community. The British and Americans, occupied with the Cold War, sought to negotiate with Italy and Yugoslavia the possibility of a transfer of provisional civil administration. On the 5th of October 1954, an accord was reached. Italy would replace the British and Americans in Zone A, and Yugoslavia would remain in Zone B. And so, Italy set foot in Trieste for a second time. But just 3 weeks later, Italy violated the mandate of civil administration, bringing in its military forces. This was done by night. Over the next 5 years, 25,000 of its youth would emigrate to Australia, Canada, South Africa, and elsewhere. An irrevocable loss to the vitality of Trieste. Exercising jurisdiction it did not possess, Italy absorbed the Free Territory of Trieste into one of Italy's regions, depriving the population of the right to decide their own future, something they had had for centuries. On the 8th of October 1966, in the midst of the economic miracle in Italy, which achieved a growth rate of 7%, the Italian government made a decision which would have a devastating impact on Trieste and the surrounding area: the suppression of the entire construction sector of the shipbuilding industry. This resulted in the loss of thousands of jobs and severe repercussions. The reaction of the people was immediate, an insurrection supported by everyone, a general strike, and businesses shuttered. The city was in mourning. But Italy sent an army of police to brutally suppress the popular uprising and completely blacked out media coverage. The outside world was not to know what was happening in Trieste. The revolt collapsed because of the betrayal of local politicians who were compromised by their ties to national Italian parties. A city betrayed and humiliated. Insecurity for the future caused a new wave of emigration involving thousands of the city's youth. But all this was clearly the ultimate goal of Italian politicians. In Rome, a plan for another wave of Italian immigrants was devised. Tens of thousands of Italian refugees from Yugoslavia, mostly farmers and fishermen, strongly pro-Italian and anti-Yugoslav, and mostly Christian Democrats, would replace the tens of thousands of family members with a heritage of independents who were forced to emigrate and who were mostly specialists and shipbuilding workers. The 10th of November 1975, its powerful and presumptuous neighbors Italy and Yugoslavia conspired to partition the Free Territory of Trieste, an action with no international legal merit. Both parties invented and agreed to a criminal scheme to legitimize the carving up of the Free Territory of Trieste. This time, the reaction was an outpouring of civic spirit reminiscent of the era of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a denunciation signed by several tens of thousands. Practically every citizen eligible to vote signed. But Italian political parties skillfully managed to negate the powerful significance of the enormous civic rebellion for independence. 2011 and a new cultural revolution. The age-old irrepressible spirit for independence emerged once again and gave rise to a popular movement to restore the independence of the Free Territory of Trieste. The Italian judiciary challenged those supporting independence by attempting to legitimize the legal status of Italian sovereignty. But their efforts were soon revealed to be ridiculous. On the 21st of October 2015, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon himself, in a letter to the Security Council, clarified that only 2 documents determine the legal status of the Free Territory of Trieste. The 16th Resolution of the United Nations and the Peace Treaty with Italy, both from 1947. This document sweeps aside all the historical, diplomatic, and legal maneuvers and falsifications which have sustained Italy's claim to sovereignty over the Free Territory of Trieste. Not even a lie can live forever. In Trieste, we are living a paradox. International protection was guaranteed to the Free Territory of Trieste, and the task now falls to the Security Council. And so we, the people of the Free Territory of Trieste, are seeking in every way possible to protect from total destruction the first and most exemplary creation of the United Nations and the Security Council. The Free Territory of Trieste was the offspring of the Peace Treaty of 1947, which came out of the darkest period of the last century, and is an example to the whole world of peaceful coexistence between peoples. It is the people of Trieste who know best how to manage their future and have clearly stated their desire to exercise their rights. It is time to rise up and for Italy to step aside so that the territory can be administered by those who cherish this land and respect existing laws. It is time that the world and all those who claim a people's right of self-determination recognize us and help us. Support us in our struggle, we who only ask for truth and justice. Whatever color you are, whatever country you come from, whatever language you speak, please support the Foundation for Trieste, the realization of a dream, the realization of our future. It all depends on you as well.